Today, our topic is Conquering the Market, Top Tips and Tricks with top agent Kraig Klaus. Really excited that Kraig's joined us today. My name is Shelly Smith. I'm your host and Director of Strategic Partnerships here at NOC. You will notice that you cannot turn on your camera or your microphone because this is a Zoom webinar format. That's okay. We encourage you to participate in the Q&A portion at the bottom of right-hand side of your screen. And we'll be answering questions as well at the end. So feel free to pop any questions you have as we go through right in there to the Q&A part. And be sure that you stick around for the entire webinar because we're also giving away a $100 Amazon gift card at the end, but you must be present to win. So be sure that you stay around to the end of that. All right, and without further ado, I am going to introduce our guest speaker, Kraig Klaus. Kraig, thanks so much for being here today. I'd love to start off by telling the audience a little bit about you. Kraig is a licensed realtor and member of the Klaus team since 2003. Kraig is the lead listing agent for the Klaus team and also a course instructor for Keller Williams. Kraig has sold over 3,000 listings for clients at top dollar in the shortest amount of time and with the least amount of stress. Kraig's overwhelming experience and industry knowledge, along with his passion for real estate, are what sets him apart and makes him recognized by his peers. So really glad you're here. Thanks again so much for joining us, Kraig.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. All right, so today we are going to cover your top tips and tricks and ask you some really great questions. But before we get started, we want to be sure the audience has a chance to weigh in. We're going to populate a poll question. Audience, we would love to know what you'd like to learn from Kraig today. So we're going to give you a couple of options. You'll see this populate up on your screen. Take a few seconds to answer this, and we'll reveal those poll questions in just a couple of minutes. But if you answer other, we would love for you to tell us what your specific question is in the Q&A. I will read those out to Kraig at the end. So anything you'd like to know, please throw that in there. So our options are overcoming objections in the market. Obviously, we've got a lot of that with buyers and sellers, encouraging clients to move forward with real estate goals, how Kraig specifically is staying motivated, and how the Klaus team is using NOC. All right, let's go ahead and reveal the results of the poll. And all right, looks like, wow, 85% want to know how you're using NOC. That's great. We've got some other questions that we'll start off with, but we will be sure to include how you're using NOC. The Klaus team has actually done the most NOC home swap transactions of any team that we work with. Obviously, we are operating in 17 states now, but Klaus team is #1 in terms of teams that operate with home swaps. So we'd love to actually hear that from you. So we'll come around to that. Okay. But let's start off. I really want to start off with the market, kind of list overview of the market, what you're seeing in the market, what you're telling your clients.
Yeah, so obviously it's been a wild ride over the last 12 months. Locally here since the beginning of January, our market has started to shift again. We were at about 21,000 active listings in October. We're down to 12,000 now. And so, what we're seeing basically is the supply and demand thing as always. Demand has remained pretty flat. We're not even at average demand. We're still below average. But with inventory where it's at, we're on a pace right now at about 2%, a little under 2% a month in appreciation. And it's a matter of just, understanding what's causing that and where we're at. I always kind of joke, this is the first time in history that people are more in love with their mortgage than they are their home. And that's what's keeping inventory down, because people just, even downsizing, you'd have to downsize 150, 200,000 to even get the same payment you're in now. And so, that's really what's keeping this kind of where we're at as far as that. And I think the second and third quarter this year is where we're going to see the majority of appreciation and sales happen. I still keep saying we get a 5 in front of rates and things are going to take off again.
Yeah, I'm hearing that as well. And you're in the Phoenix market, right? So
Correct.
This is, your stats are representative of Phoenix and the Phoenix metro.
And we're a little isolated in terms of the rest of the country, meaning our market is always different just because we have over 300 people a day moving here. We have every real estate tech thing that new comes to here first. We have master plan communities, newer homes, easier to comp and all of that. So yeah, for sure, that's a big part of it.
That's great. And so what tech tools are you using? Since Phoenix, you're right, gets a lot of those tools first, and you have a lot to sort through. I know in many markets, a lot of agents kind of get that change fatigue, maybe
Oh, yeah.
the information overload. So obviously you're on the front lines of that. What are you actually using and why?
Well, we're blessed. I mean, we don't hide from things like, take Open Door or OfferPad, for example. Open Door came into our market in 2014. In the beginning, we just kind of laughed them off. We're like, people argue with us over 1% commission. Either they're going to give up 15 to 18% of their equity, but they did, and surprisingly. And so we reached out to them and basically asked, can we get offers from you on our listings as well? And so from about 2016 or 17 on, every listing appointment I would go on, I would get an offer from Open Door, present that, and then do a side by side so that they could see both. It's the elephant in the room. Everybody knows about it. You've got to be able to address it. So anytime anything new comes in, we try to get involved and learn about it, and really try to we're just adding tools to the toolkit. I mean, one of our big marketing messaging slogans is call us first, because whether it's Open Door, OfferPad, Knock, Easy Knock, whatever, we have the resources to be able to kind of lay it all out for you in a way that easier for you to understand. It's our information, not yours, getting put into all these different companies. So just using it, not being afraid of it, leveraging it. We weren't real popular in the marketplace for a while when we first started doing with Open Door. And then we started actually getting some listings from them, and it made it even worse. But now I think most agents are aware that they can be a partner. They don't have to be a competition. And so we just try to embrace everything. That way we have solutions. We have rent to own solutions. We have cash offer solutions. We have obviously home swap options. I mean, it's a matter of being able to walk into an appointment and feel like you have an answer for pretty much anything they want to do. So embracing that, not hiding from it, not saying that's not going to work, I don't want to learn it. You get into it. And that's how we got involved with Knock. And I mean, Kenny and I both said we've been doing this a little over 20 years. I wish we had it 20 years ago. And so, understanding that, I'm still constantly amazed when I get contingent offers and I bring up Knock and how many agents are like, what? I don't know. I don't, and don't understand. I think the new change in the program that allows them to use any lender for the primary loan is a game changer in terms of new builds. For one, people go to new builds, their lenders offering incentives. You don't want to lose those, but you need the bridge loan, you need the home swap. It makes a huge difference. Out of state, I mean, I've probably done 7 or 8 out of state referrals, people selling here, moving out of state. Now that they can use any lender, it doesn't have to be a Knox state that they're moving to. And I tell you, we've done over 50 that I'm aware of. I used it myself, and I haven't seen one better. And I haven't seen, for somebody who needs to buy then sell, I haven't seen any program that works better for them. And they're starting to see more of them come to the market, but the ability to eliminate the current mortgage as a debt is a huge part of that.
That's great. I mean, I've been an agent as well for 15 years, and the need for the ability to drop a contingency and unlock the equity in the listing exists in any market. So whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, those are long-standing issues that we're aiming to solution, and also do that rather than in competition, like you said, with the agents, in partnership with agents and in partnership with your lender. So if you have a local lender with a long-standing history, you can use them and then add Knock Home Swap to the end of that as well. So that's great.
Yep, and we've been able to educate some builders out here on that too, it sounds like. So that's been good.
We have, yes. Yeah, you and I have worked together with the Knock team as well on the back end, helping to educate builders. Obviously, that's a really stressful transaction for clients. Typically, I have found more than a resale. Yeah. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but when you're building a house, it's a little bit more emotional. And then it also comes with trying to time the market and where do you live in the meantime? Everyone's waiting on CO so you can actually close and move in. And it eliminates all that stress because your clients live in their own house until the new house is built. So if I had a transaction one time that was delayed 2 months over a microwave. It wasn't the builder's fault. It wasn't our fault, but the clients ended up with things in storage and living with friends and family, and not a great situation. And Home Swap would have solved that if I'd had the tool, like you said.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Like I said, I mean, I think the biggest challenge we have is the what am I missing part of it. you know, what's too good to be true, and what am I missing? What's the downside to this? And it's just explaining. I think that's where a lot of it, for me, having actually used it myself when I bought, I think it helps lend some credibility and understanding. Plus, just the amount of them that we've done to this point and understanding what is involved in that has just been good.
That's great. So when you're talking to clients, I think this is kind of the number one question I hear agents ask. How do I identify that a client would be a good fit for home swap? I mean, my answer to that is 2/3 of the market's buying and selling at the same time.
Yep.
So 2/3 of the people you talk to need home swap. How do you actually identify them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason that you wouldn't entertain it, it would be if obviously if the home doesn't qualify, if it's manufactured, something along those lines, price point, whatever. Or if they're looking to buy manufactured or something where we can't do a typical conventional loan. But outside of that, I think that if they're looking to buy and sell, now some, you know, if they don't have a mortgage and they have the money for the down payment, they can afford the new payment without having to sell. Obviously, that's not something that we would push necessarily. They don't have to do that. But if they don't have a mortgage and they need the money for down payment, there's still ways to do that where, you know, they take out a loan, they have a couple of months worth of payments, we get the home sold, and then they're able to recast and pay that down or pay it off. And I think just not pushing, but being educating on that, because I have a lot of people that say they want to pay all cash for the next home. When we talk and say, well, what if you left 100,000 as a loan amount and leverage that 100,000 to do other investing or whatnot, and just kind of helping to understand. I think the biggest thing that I try to take away and learn from is just asking more questions. You know, when you're there, the hardest thing for me sometimes is not overselling this program for somebody when I know it's the right fit, because there is some apprehension to it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just understanding this solves the problem. And I always tell them from the standpoint of listing their home, look, I'm not going to entertain a contingent offer in the first couple of weeks because we don't need to. So, you know, in this case, we don't want to be contingent. We want to put ourselves in the best position possible, especially with inventory dropping and multiple offers on listings again and things like that. You also have situations where maybe the house that they're selling just isn't going to be able to be on the market while they're still there. Pets, kids, needs work to be done, whatever. You know, I've had clients where they have a hard time getting and leaving the house. So for showings, that's going to be really difficult. Well, this eliminates that. They give the option to be able to buy their next home, close, move in, and then we get their house ready and then sell it vacant. And people really seem to like the opportunity to sell it vacant and not have to deal with showings and all of that. And they're in their new home. They're excited about that. So, you know, I think, like I said, just trying to ask the right questions, answer the right questions. And, you know, I always kind of start off with, you know, how open-minded are you? Would you be interested in learning about a program that could allow you to pull equity out of your current home, buy your next home, close, move in, then we can fix up your old home if it needs work. They'll front that or sell it at that point. And I think, again, once people digest it and understand it, I guess if we haven't had anybody that's done it that hasn't been happy as heck that they did it and would say they wouldn't do it any other way again. So we haven't had any issues or any negative feedback from it at all.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And by the way, for anyone who's kind of new joining us, the home swap is 0% interest and 0 payments for up to 6 months. So in terms of using your client's equity for buying the new house, they can leverage that for their down payment and closing costs. They can leverage that to pay for home repairs, like Kraig said. So those repairs happen while they're living in the new house, not while they're living in their current house. So really convenient there. And so I think it makes it kind of, we do hear sometimes sounds too good to be true, right? Because it makes things so simple, but your clients can literally buy the new house with an inspection fee, earnest money, and the appraisal, right? I mean, they don't have
they can use some of their equity if they need to go above appraisal too on their purchase, right?
They can, yes. We've done that many times. And so clients are maxing out that 0% for up to 6 months and really maxing it out and paying off credit cards and paying off car loans with it in order to get a better interest rate. You can also buy down the rate with it. So you really can put a package together that works for your clients and leverage their equity for their best use case, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, when we're working with one right now that she owns her home, she has potentially money for a down payment and retirement, but it's in an annuity and there's all these other things. And she doesn't want a new mortgage, but we're helping her to understand that she may have a new mortgage for 2 or 3 months, and then we'll get her home sold. Then she could, if she wanted to, recast and pay it off. So yeah, there's going to be some additional cost to it for her, but it's either that or we sell her house. She moves in with family and puts her stuff in storage until we find a new place, which there's financial cost to that, but there's also, I don't know how marriages don't always do too well when an in-laws are living there forever, and that. So you just kind of look at the whole picture, storage, everything else. And she, that's what we're working on with her right now, is understanding that as another option rather than cashing in things and retirements and annuities and things that have fees and penalties and everything else. So it's
Right.
like I said, it can be asked the right questions. It can pretty much be a solution almost probably whatever you said 80% of the time for most everybody. It can be an opportunity and a solution. And I would tell you, referral business out of state has been phenomenal. I mean, I've referred it to a large team in Dallas who had it but hadn't used it. And I know last time I talked to them, they had done like 10 in a couple months since that we introduced it to them. I sent one to a Prescott, Arizona. The agent called me and said, I got my whole brokerage using it now. North Carolina, South Carolina, Michigan. I mean, it's fun because I get to talk to that agent first about the program, explain it to them, and they're just like, wow, we got to get that, or how do we get that? And so to be able to walk into a listing appointment knowing that they have to buy also and have this in your back pocket has been a game changer for us in that, and has opened up a lot of new opportunities. It actually, when we first got it, it actually motivated me to go out and door knock in my farm for the first time in probably 10 years, because I was just so excited, because especially a couple of years ago, the biggest challenge people had was all my money's tied up in my house. And I know I can't get it until I sell to buy my next house, but I know nobody's taking contingent offers. So to be able to create that solution for them has been awesome.
That's great. And not only, are people having to put things in storage, but they also can't find a house, right? So now you've got the inventory situation on top of it. So if they sell their listing and they're in a temporary situation, who knows how long it will be until they find the right house and they beat the competition. How is HomeSwap helping you make really competitive offers for your clients? Because I love that you tied in that buy side to the listing solution.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing too, mentioned, like with the market the way it is right now, and as at least locally, as we're starting to have appreciation again. I always tell clients it's May right now. So if you went out and bought a house, closed or got under contract in early June, and then didn't close until middle of July, and then we needed to get some work done, or you were doing work to the new house, another 2 weeks go by before we list the beginning of August, you just gained another 2 months worth of appreciation on your current home while you've locked in the price on that new home. And so for that, it's a phenomenal opportunity in terms of to be able to kind of use the market in your favor. And I think that, leveraging that with being conventional, non-contingent. Obviously, Knock has their cash offer program, so that's another option depending on the situation. But just being able to put buyers in the strongest position possible, to stand out from people that are in the other position where they are contingent, or getting HELOCs or doing other things and trying to eliminate. But a lot of times with HELOCs, it doesn't eliminate the mortgage payment on the current or that, so that doesn't always work. If you take out a HELOC on one that they owe free and clear, I mean, rates are, I don't even know, 8-9% on HELOCs. I mean, it just, like I said, this program is why I do these. It's why I offered to talk about it at our brokerage. It's why we do it, because I just want more agents to know. I'm a listing agent. I don't work with buyers. I only do listings, and I wish more agents knew, because then I wouldn't have get contingent offers. When I get contingent offers, I try everything I can to educate them on an option and opportunity. A quick example, I sold a house last year for $6,000 more than the same model across the street with a pool, and we didn't have a pool, but it's because the buyers were contingent. They only had 3 weeks left to find a house. The other house was occupied, ours was vacant. So they ended up having to pay more for a house that didn't have a pool because they could get in time. And so, when you look at that, you mentioned it earlier, if it takes you months to find a home, in this case, we're not hurting anything because we're not touching their current home until they find and close. And they have the opportunity, once they get under contract, we can list their current home. If for some reason they still want to do that while they're in it, we can. I haven't really had anybody want to yet, but it just creates that opportunity to be able to leverage that and put them in a better position.
Yeah. And you mentioned being a listing agent. You have one of my favorite things you've ever said is your tip about bringing a buyer's agent to your listing appointment. Can you tell us about that? I think that's really helpful.
So we partner on that way so that they can stay focused on the buy side and I can stay focused on their listing side. So I bring them, if I know up front, we introduce them, we get them excited talking about what they're looking for in their next home. We talk about any prep that needs to be done on their current home, how it's going to lay out, how it's going to work. We get numbers for them, we get estimates, we put all that together. But the fun thing is for them is that they get to go out and do the fun part first, right? They get to go out and look for their next home, close, do that, and then worry about their other home later. So it's really just, it creates a little bit more excitement in their eyes as well when they realize it.
Yeah. And a better experience in the end.
100%.
By the time they get closed, right? They're happier clients. They probably come back. We talk a lot at Knock about we want to create thousands of raving fans, not just with consumers and your clients, but with agents as well. We want raving fans so that you return to us every time you have this situation someone needs to buy before they sell. How are you doing that at Klaus team? I mean, we'd love for you to talk about Knock, but other ways that you are creating that raving fan situation.
Well, for us, we have what we call our 212-degree promise. It's based on the 212 movie. It's that water at 211 degrees, water is hot. At 212 degrees, it boils and it can produce steam, and steam can power a locomotive. It's that one extra degree. So, we talked about that listing appointments. I want to, exceed your expectations. If I'm going to talk to you at the end, if I didn't, I'd like to know how and what I could do differently. But we expect that they're going to be referring us 1 or 2 clients in the next 6 to 12 months at the end of each transaction based on what we did. Communication is the key. That the average agent's 5.5 years, I think, through NAR. I know locally we haven't had a balanced market since 2014. And so communication is the key. When listings start to sit like they did last summer and you have to talk to them every week. You may not have anything to talk about, but you got to be in touch and stay communicating with them, keep them up on what's going on around them in the market. We went through this in 10 and 11 with all the short sales. I mean, I call once a week and be like, yep, nothing's changed. We're still sitting here waiting, and there's about 700 other homes just like ours within 2 miles that are sitting there waiting. But it's communication, because if you don't make it this week, it makes it harder to make that call next week. And the longer you wait, the harder it is to make that call. And I just think that through communication, through being upfront, I tell people I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not here to hurt your feelings, but I'm here to be honest and do what it takes to cause your home to sell. And really just being upfront and being real with them, and not just a bunch of, things to make them get confused or anything like that. Just telling them where we're at, what needs to be done, what the expectations are, through the experience of having, I think I have 6 active right now. I have 7 under contract as a team. I think we have 12 active. So we've got a pretty good handle on price points, areas, what are being shown, what's not, things like that. So just communication is always going to be the key. They want to know you're doing something, even if there's not much to do, and they want to know that they're not on an island. And I think that's the biggest thing. When we were going through that shift last summer, one of the things I would do on a Monday or a Tuesday is I would go back and I'd say to the listing, I'd say, look, nothing like ours sold over the weekend. So we didn't miss our buyer. Okay. And so we just have to be patient, or we're positioned correctly, we're presented correctly. But I think keeping an eye on, because then if one did and say, hey, this one's went under contract, it was at this price, it had these things, that's telling us that where we need to be. So, but I would say communication. And then for me, it's, it's pricing and presentation, and then a little bit of patience. And we have to make sure that, the good news is with the market appreciating again, I tell my clients it's almost impossible for me to underprice it, because if it's worth 500 and I put it on at 475, we're going to get multiple offers and it's going to go over 500. So there's a little bit there, but you can't overdo it, and then you're backing down, waiting for the market to catch up.
That's a great point. All right. And so you mentioned your team. We haven't really talked about your team. So we'd love to know how many you have on your team and how you're staying motivated and keeping them motivated in a tough market, it's easy as an agent to go, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, sit this out for a minute. There's a temptation to do that, but obviously that sets you back. So how are you staying motivated?
Well, I think we have 22 on our team. We have 6 or 7 full-time success staff, and then we have the rest are agents. And I think the key is just, we talk about time fundamentals, and Gary Keller says that real estate's a contact sport. You've got to be in front of people. You've got to be talking to people. We're sharing content online, social media. We have a State 48 homeowner podcast that once a month we do a real estate podcast or a update on. And from the standpoint with our teams is, we always look at it as we have the experience, we have the systems in place that you have to look at it that if we are not helping this client, they're not getting the best service. We joke in Arizona, it only takes 90 hours to get a real estate license. It takes 12 months to get a license to cut hair. So it's too easy to get into the industry. So you have to make sure, and we look at it from the standpoint of, I want them to have a good experience, because if a client has a bad experience with a realtor, they assign it to all of us. It's like used car salesman, right? You're never excited about that process. So the more that we can help, that, but for us, it's just, what do you do on a daily basis? Are you in the office from 9 to 11 making calls? Are you doing events? Are you attending things? Are you being out in front of people, posting on social media, data that's real, that's understandable? And just tell them it's always like Michael Jordan said, the fundamentals never change, just the attention to them. And when the market gets slow, people don't really have an idea of what to do. Get on the phones, get out in front of people, get on open houses, whatever it takes to get in front of people. And that's what we tell them, because we have expectations. We ask for a GCI goal at the end of every year. We budget our marketing and everything off of that. So if our agents aren't hitting that, we need to step in and figure out why. And if they're not motivated, then, we may just reintroduce them into the agent pool and let somebody else have that. But the idea is you're out making the calls, you're sitting in front of open houses, doing things that are, putting you out in front of people and just being honest with them and telling them what we know about the market. But understanding that good things are coming in the next couple months, and it's a matter of buckle down so that you're ready and you're prepared and that you're active and ready to get going for people. But, we have twice a week, we have what we call a huddle call on Zoom, about 10 minutes, just checking in on Monday and Friday with the team. Here's where that. And then every Wednesday we have our sales meeting. We have a monthly book club. So we do a book every month and personal development book and sales books and that type of thing. But, and I'll be honest, we have a scoreboard. So we have an electronic scoreboard that tells you how much the team is doing, how many deals each agent has monthly, and that's pretty motivating. At least for me, I'm competitive and I've been on the top the whole time, so I want to stay there. So it's a matter of, for a lot of agents, even if they're newer on our team, we've been there and done that. Like I said, I've been doing this over 20 years. I mean, the amount I've seen, 03 was normal, and then the 04 through 06, and then the 08 through 11, and then the investor turnaround in 12, 13, and then that average in 14, and then we've just been on a run now. So pretty much we've seen what can happen in a market, and we have answers and solutions for them. It's one thing that I think we're very good at is getting out into the market and finding out what programs are out there and not hiding from them, and being aware of them so that we're able to talk about them, educate our clients on them.
Yeah, that's great. I have one more point I'd love for you to make, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So we were talking in our prep call about how this time is different than 08, 09, and that now we've got social media and misinformation, and, it's kind of the impact of the news and news cycles on consumers and agents, people on your team as well, right? So yep. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that's in everybody's memory, right? 08 and what happened there. There's so many things, data points. 6 of the last 8 recessions has caused home values to go up, not down. Obviously, 08 was one that didn't, but that was caused by mortgage-backed securities. The biggest difference, I tell clients, the 2 biggest differences are equity and fixed rate mortgages. Okay, we have people that had to put money down, so they have instant equity. The prices had gone up, so they have equity. But the fixed rate mortgage thing is a big deal because, in 08, we were doing 100% loans, interest only loans, 3-1 arms, 5-1 arms, all these different things. And people were able to get into a home. Shoot, you could do 105% financing in some of these things where you get money back for buying a house. And so when any little market shift happened and we started to drop values, pretty much everybody was underwater at that point. And so, there's so many differences in that regards. That, our inventory in '05, when things started to take off, was pretty average and then dropped down. But what we saw this past time was simply meaning their inventory got so low that prices had nowhere to go up. In '05, it was more, we had way more buyers than we did that. And whereas in '08 or now, it was a matter of, we just didn't have enough housing. For 10 years, builders didn't build at the normal rate. So, I heard couple months back, it's something like 1.4 million households are formed a year, 1.2 million homes are built. So we're not catching up. I know the last number I heard was just under 2 million units short of housing as a country. I know we're over 500,000 units short here. They do not count as Airbnb or VRBOs in that, which are not long-term rental opportunities. So that's even less than, or even less opportunities for people than the numbers would stay. But I think the differences are staggering in so many ways from '08, but you have to talk about it. Like I said, this is the first market shift of social media. So now everybody not only has an opinion, but a vehicle to express that opinion. Doom and gloom sells and gets clicks. It's easy to say the market's going to crash in 3 months, because when it doesn't, nobody's mad at you. Nobody remembers you said it. If you say it enough times, maybe once you get it right, and that's what happens. But I think it's a matter of people understanding how we got into that mess versus what caused this to happen. That was basically lowering lending guidelines to allow anybody and everybody to buy a home because it was a right all of a sudden, not a privilege. This is simply, we don't have enough homes for people to live in. Rents have gone up. COVID caused millennials to buy a lot quicker than they were expected. Most statistics before COVID said millennials wouldn't be buying until their mid to late 30s. COVID kind of changed that. Because if you're in a rental and your landlord decides to sell or doesn't pay his mortgage or whatever, you don't have the stability in that. And like we always tell renters, you're worried about 6.5% interest rate, you're paying 100% on rent. The interest on rent's 100%. So if we get in now, start building equity, the word, the phrase we use a lot with buyers is you marry the house and date the rate. So if you get in today and your rate's 6.5, but if 3 months from now, rates have a 5 in front of them or even lower, you can refi at that point and get into a little bit lower payment. If you can afford the payment today, even if it's pushing it a little bit, you have that opportunity down the road. So don't get hung up on so much on that, because my feeling is if we're appreciating 2% a month and you say, I'm going to wait till August when rates are 5%, you're waiting another 8% appreciation versus 1 to 1.5% in interest rates, but you lost that equity. Whereas in this case, you at least gain that towards it. And you get, you start getting the write-offs and everything else that goes into it. So, I tell people we're looking, there's nothing in state right now locally I shouldn't say nothing. There's not a lot of opportunities to find rentals locally to buy and hold. But we've been looking out of state. I've got a couple of agents buy out of state. So, I say if we're looking to buy, then, that's a good sign that, we are fairly encouraged of what the market's going to be like.
Yeah. And that's a great segue. The cost and appreciation is a great segue to our Q&A. We have a couple of questions about the cost of using HomeSwap, which, by the way, just for the audience sake, is 2% on the listing cost. So whatever the listing is, it's 2%. We don't raise it if you sell it for more. We don't lower it if you sell it for less. It's just 2% of whatever you list the house for. How are your clients feeling about that? And how are you explaining that cost to clients when you're talking to them? It's
a convenience fee. Basically, it allows you to unlock your equity and to be able to qualify not contingent and go buy it right away. And when you leverage that, like the one I'm dealing with right now in particular, she doesn't have a mortgage, but she doesn't want a new mortgage, but she doesn't have so we're looking at that. I think the fee was going to be about 10,500 or 800, something like that. And then when you start factoring in the cost of storage and everything else into that, not to mention the fact that we have to wait another potentially 45, 60, 75 days before we get your house on the market, under contract, through closing and all that, before you have the money and then you're ready to go buy. Prices are going up during that time. So it's a matter of just laying out everything to people. And that's, looking at weighing all the costs. And I tell you what, when I did it myself, I think my fees were like $9,000, but I wouldn't have blinked. That was nothing compared to what it would have been trying to do it the other way. And when you're in an appreciating market, you're going to eat that 10 grand up potentially, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it takes, like this particular client, if it takes her 30 days to find a house, 40 days to close, another week to get moved in and we list, by the time we go to list hers, it may be worth 8 to 10 grand more than when we started. And so to me, yeah, I don't see it as a fee. I see it more as a opportunity, or as a convenience to be able to get that money out. It's a one-time fee, so like you said, it's interest free, and so it's enabling you to get out and do the easiest way, the best way possible. Not to mention, with the exception of potentially some houses looking better with furniture and staged in them, a lot of times if it's vacant right now, it's just, that's better, right? Because people can, if they need to be in quick, they can. If they're cash and it's quick, then it's even more leverage for them. So yeah, I think just looking at it from that and trying to weigh all the costs involved and understanding, even if it may cost a little bit more to do this program from a dollars and cents standpoint, but in the long run, and when you look at everything and you lay it all out, how much more are we talking about? Because is it really worth that? And how long are you going to be? Is that, I mean, you're just, it's not, to me, you're hopefully gaining that equity back on the other end. But just like anything, I mean, if it didn't cost anything, everybody would do it, right? I mean, so there has to be something in it and a fee to do that, but it's not a recurring fee. Some of these others are, you know, they're charging interest on it. So if it took you 4 months to sell the old house, you know, you're still continuing to pay on that. I think for people that have a current mortgage, having that current mortgage paid through their equity as well is a big part of it. So they only have to worry about one payment while they're doing this. And I just think if you know, I'm a numbers guy. I tell people, I mean, I run estimated net sheets all the time for clients on, this is what the price we agreed to, here's the offer we got. And I think just putting numbers in front of people, because, you know, I say I'm extremely transparent. I don't play with people's money, and I want them to be upfront and understand it. And then ultimately it's their decision. We just try to lay everything out. We look at every solution, and then we allow them to choose through our guidance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and there's no additional cost to this point too. If they come with their own lender, they've got a banking relationship, or they're working with someone you know locally, there's no additional cost. It's still the 2%. And it's really the cost of capital. And if you think about the cost of capital in the market right now, 2% is nothing for using money, right?
Not at all. And that's, yeah, that's the key. And I think people, again, it's something that, you know, the bigger concern right now, I think people have is the backstop offer, because, you know, when you tell them it's 80% of value, and if we didn't sell it in 6 months, they'd have to do that. Fortunately, I haven't had that happen yet. And even last year, we were able to get them all sold. But I tell people, if that did happen, the only way we would end up at that number is that that's where the market was. Meaning the market just crashed on us while we were doing this. And I tell people, well, then we have this as our backstop. So we're not going any lower than that, right? So I mean, to me, that's like a huge leverage against potentially another COVID or who knows, whatever. And so to me, that part of it isn't a big concern. It's a matter of, you know, just explaining and understanding that.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so I've got a referral question in here for you. So when you refer knock to another brokerage, it says, I assume the advantage is the referral fee from the brokerage for the customer you refer and not from knock. That's correct. Yeah. But tell us a little bit about, you know, the way you're negotiating those referral fees when you're referring a client to a brokerage out of state.
Yeah, I mean, we're standard 25% referral fee for referring them a client. That hasn't changed, and that's not different. What's different is, it's like if somebody referred a client to us here and said, yeah, they have a home to sell first out here, you know, we're like, all right, well, let us know when that happens, and then we'll get. Whereas in this, and go, look, yeah, we're going to be selling their home, but they get to buy first, and here's this program, explain it to them. They go online, it takes a couple minutes to get knock certified, they're good to go, and then walk them through it on that end. But for the buyer's agent, it's just a conventional loan with no contingencies. Other than that, there's nothing different for the buyer's agent. So it doesn't affect them any other way, except it just makes them a ready buyer now versus waiting.
Yeah, it gets them out faster for sure.
Correct. Yeah. And again, I always found that I joke with my buyer's agents, like, you're the fun one because you're helping them find their new house. They're excited. And then they got to come home to their old house and they're mad because I haven't sold, you know, like there's just different mindsets in that. And I think from buyer's perspective, agents to be able to have that opportunity to be able to get out into them. Like I said, so when I refer, I'll just say, hey, they're already qualified through this program. They're non-contingent. They're putting 20 or 30% down. They're ready to go. Don't worry about the house here. We've got that figured out. It's not an issue. And so for them, they love it. I mean, it's just they're ready, willing, and able buyers right when we refer them.
Yeah, that's great.
I've got clients going out to Kentucky right now that are looking at that, and I've introduced it to the agents out there. They're going out in 2 weeks to look, and I'm hopefully they'll be ready to go by the time before they leave. We're still getting them in that process, but the idea would be if they found something their first weekend out there, they could make an offer.
Yeah, that's great. And a non-contingent offer. So they're in their new house and not having to worry about what's happening in Phoenix. You've got that covered.
Yep. And that way they have time to close, move everything out, take their time, get out of there. If they need to do work on the new house, they can do that, because we haven't done anything with their old house until they're ready. I know, we have 45 days to get their house on the market from when they close. So they've got time.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a couple of questions. I'll answer these. Can the mortgage brokers receive a referral fee? We can't do that actually because of RESPA. So we can talk to RESPA if we ever want to change that, but currently we can't do that for that reason. And then Kevin asks, I thought I heard you say you can access equity to pay off cards and other debts. Can you expand on that? So if you access the money to fix up the property. So yeah, I'll go ahead and cover this one as well, Kraig. So you can access your client's equity at 0% for up to 6 months and help decide with your client and their loan officer the best use of that money. So whether it's down payment and closing costs, or it's paying the old mortgage payment, home prep to get the listing ready to go on the market and sell at top dollar, could also be used to pay off credit cards or car loans. Maybe they already have a HELOC that needs to be paid off. We can pay those things off with the equity that your clients currently have in their house, same 0%, 0 payments for up to 6 months. It will typically get them a better rate. So their DTI will be lower, their debt to income ratio. So they'll typically get a better rate for that. So very good. And then Kevin says same limit up to 35,000. No, there's actually no limit on that. So to pay off the secured and unsecured debt, we just have to be sure that we've got enough to cover their down payment and closing costs and their old mortgage payment. And then you can help your client decide what's the best use of the remaining available equity that they have through Knock Home Swap. So it's a great vehicle, and that you can customize it for your clients. We know every real estate transaction is a little bit different. It's kind of the name of the game. So this is a way to customize it for your clients.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're at the end here, and I appreciate everyone's questions. Kraig, I appreciate you being here as well. If we've got somebody, I know that you teach courses for Keller Williams. If somebody wants to reach you or they want more information about the courses that you teach, how do we reach out to you for that?
You can email me. It's my first name, Kraig, Kraig, at Klaus, Klaus team.com. So Kraig with a K at klausteam.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that.
Yes, to answer that question that just popped up, I do.
Oh, good. Let's
I
see.
could actually probably grab one if we have one.
Oh, that's great. A rider sign with Knock.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, we'd love to see. Hey, David, that was a great question.
Yeah, we have these made, and we put these on all of our listings. So it just says this home qualifies for buy then sell with Klaus Team. And
That's
so
awesome.
that way it creates conversation for people to understand. And then, even I've had agents call because they were showing it and their client asked. So yeah, definitely. We try to leverage it every way we can.
That's all right. Awesome.